We're here today with Matt Turner, a psychic, a healer, an author, and so much more. So let's get into it. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Glad to be here.
It's so nice to see you.
Thank you.
We've been friends for a bit now. I'm trying to think of how long we've known one another.
I mean, more than a few years.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But you've been such a great inspiration to me on so many levels, from learning all about energy healing and to going on your retreat. It's all been really wonderful to get to know you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I have some interest in how you may have gotten into spirituality.
When I was 15, I moved in with my aunt and uncle, and they were kind of the witchy, metaphysical people in the family. And so, they would always see psychics and healers, and I just started doing that with them. And really, I just kind of felt like I was finding the answers to all my questions I'd had my whole life. And then I took it from there.
Yeah, because you started pretty young.
Yeah.
Most people start kind of getting into this when they're in, well, I'll speak for myself, when life has gotten really shitty. And you're looking for solutions and help. And it seems like, was that your situation? Were things really bad for you, or?
Yeah, I would say that kind of felt like a big catalyst for me when I was having those experiences with my aunt and uncle and experiencing healing. Because of course, before that, I'd had a lot of trauma, I had a lot of pain. So I was very motivating for me to find these things, to recognize that I didn't have to stay in pain. I didn't have to stay in suffering for my whole life, and that there was kind of a way out on the other side of that.
Well, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, you saved yourself a lot of heartbreak over the years getting into this so young. That's amazing. What are some tips that you've used to quiet your inner critic?
There's two main things that I use, being self-acceptance and redirection. So the first thing that I do is practice self-acceptance. And so that's kind of in my thoughts. So just saying things that feel empowering and affirming to myself. The second thing that I like to do is redirection. So that's me kind of redirecting those thoughts of judgment or criticism back to those thoughts of self-acceptance or self-affirmation. And I just repeat that over and over and over. And that voice of the inner critic just gets less and less loud over time.
Well, that's great. But I also want to know then, how did you get to that point? Let's say somebody's just starting out in the spiritual world or is just learning about conscious living, and they're struggling with this negative inner chatter. How did you get to that point?
For me, it's something that, so in all of my healing work, really the foundation is channeling. So my connection with spirit, with divine source energy. And so in channeling for other people, that's something that spirit taught me one day, that redirection is something that we really have to practice, because self-talk can be our most powerful tool for healing, as well as for our self-destruction. So I really like to use self-talk a lot as a tool in whatever the healing is that I'm doing. And the redirection is about not giving more life and power to that maybe inner critic or whatever it might be. And instead of exercising that muscle, I exercise that empowered muscle more and really focus on those thoughts and try to affirm those things more.
And what's interesting is that I think oftentimes people do it a few times and it doesn't work, and they're struggling with that voice all day long, and so they stop. And the truth is, like you said, it's a muscle, right? It's a practice. You think of medical practice, law practice, yoga practice. All of these things take time to excel at, right? Or get better. And I encourage people to just keep going. And it also doesn't mean that it's never coming back. I would imagine you still, from time to time, have that voice, right?
Oh my God, absolutely.
You're not perfect.
Right. That voice gets real loud sometimes.
Yeah.
But the difference now is I recognize it more quickly, and I know what to do about it, so that I spend less time kind of reinforcing that voice and giving it more power.
So you mentioned self-talk as building a muscle, something you have to practice over and over to get good at, right?
Right. I mean, I really think of it in a practical way like that. The more that I exercise a muscle, the stronger it's going to get. So whether that's the muscle of maybe feeling disempowered or empowered, whatever those thoughts and that self-talk is, that's the one I want to focus on and get it stronger, because I want to feel good. I don't want to feel like shit.
Me too.
Right.
What would you say to someone who's hit their rock bottom?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is never give up. because we're always going to get where we're going if we keep putting energy into it, we keep making efforts, we keep making attempts. And so if we can just keep breathing and keep moving and keep trying different things, we're always going to get where we're going, because we do have eternity after all.
Yeah, I believe that. As long as there's breath in us, there's an opportunity and hope for change. It can and will get better.
Absolutely.
Do you think spirituality and religion can coexist?
I think that's an interesting question. Maybe for some people. There's this meme that I always see go around that says religion is someone else's experience of God and spirituality is your own experience of God. So for me, like, I always connect more with spirituality versus religion. But I also think that life isn't black and white enough to say that they can't exist together. Now, personally, I have a hard time with that definition, understanding how they could exist together. But sure, I think they can.
Anything is possible, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because a lot of times you hear, especially like in the Catholic religion, that like Reiki is devil work, and they
Right.
won't allow it in their hospitals. And really, I've heard it that, you know, spirituality is more, you know, your power within versus something outside of you. And that I really resonate with.
You know, my biggest problem with religion is more about the dogma aspects of it. Anything that tells me I have to be this in order for this to happen, that's dogma, that's a cult, so no thank you. For me, like, most of spirituality is free from that. And with that being said, I've seen plenty of alternative religions disguised as spirituality that have dogma in it. And I've also seen plenty of people in religion or identify as religious that don't do it with dogma. And so, like, for me, that's really the key piece to determine whether or not, like, maybe I resonate with it or not. Because I don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay.
And, you know, I think of like a lot of these cults that have come up along the way, and it feels like if it's spirituality, you're not looking to someone to give you all the answers, solutions, that it empowers you to know that you actually hold those answers. Having a teacher or a guide is one thing, but worshiping someone and thinking everything they say is truth, that I have a little issue with.
Right. It's like religion is all about put trust in something else outside of yourself. And spirituality for me is about putting more trust in yourself. And I think personally that's what's going to take us much farther in life.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Some people struggle with self-sacrifice, codependency, and people-pleasing. What steps would you encourage them to take?
The first step is about awareness, even recognizing the ways that in all areas of our life that we're falling into the self-sacrificing and people-pleasing and codependency. Awareness alone can do a lot for shifting. And then for the people or the moments where maybe the awareness isn't enough, another step is to identify practical solutions of things to kind of redirect your behavior or thought patterns to in those moments. And then it's kind of like that exercising the muscle piece again.
Awareness is key. If you aren't aware of something, you can't change it.
Right. You can't do anything about what you don't know.
Right. Channeling is one of your favorite healing modalities. Can you explain to people who don't know about it what it is?
Absolutely. Channeling is being a conduit of divine source energy. So I like to think of it as, instead of using my own energy and being of service to others, I can really tap into that universal divine source energy and allow that to flow through me and use it as I'm being of service to others. And I love channeling because it can literally be infused with any other modality, any other technique, or it can also just be a standalone thing.
Some people may not know what channeling is. What does it mean to you?
For me, channeling is about opening myself up to the universe and tapping into that divine source energy and bringing that energy into my own consciousness. And the purpose is about meeting a need. So whatever the other person is that I'm channeling for, I'm connecting to their energy, and then spirit, that divine source energy, maybe shows me visions or just kind of gives me these knowings that I have to really help them know what they don't know.
How would you explain channeling to someone who's never heard about it?
Yeah, channeling is being a conduit of divine source energy. It's really just about tapping into the universe, maybe that like higher consciousness, higher power, whatever you want to call it or label it, and opening ourselves up to really bringing that energy forth through us and using it, whether it's just about supporting ourselves on our own journey or maybe supporting others in their healing journey. It really is something that can be infused and added into anything, any process, any modality, or it can be a standalone thing. Ultimately, it's there to help us know what we don't know.
Many people have channeled for me, and I've channeled for others, but one of the greatest insights I've received from it is that it's confirmation. It's validation around something I already know, but just needed another person to confirm it.
Absolutely. Like, I think validation is so important because at the end of the day, that can be the thing to give a person enough confidence to actually move forward with whatever decision is they're wanting to make versus getting lost in that overthinking.
What's been your experience when someone's channeled for you?
These days I mostly channel for myself, but I remember the first time that I ever, for instance, had a psychic reading and she was channeling for me when I was 15. Things that she told me is that I was a healer, a leader, a writer, a teacher. And at that point in my life, I was super shy, so I didn't believe anything that she said because I was filtering all that information through more like, unworthiness and insecurity. But for 5 years, from 15 to 20, every psychic I would go see, every single one of them would tell me that. So after kind of hearing that enough and really having that validation enough, and after having healed, so I was hearing that information differently, I was able to really let it in and accept it and actually start to pursue what that looked like for me to now be the one doing that and channeling for others.
Which is great that, using channeling or having someone channel for you can really help you step into your power and find your purpose.
Absolutely, and like, those are literally two of the main things that I do with clients is teaching them how to own your power and figuring out what their purpose is and how they want to show up in the world, specifically with other healers, which for me, the word healer is just about being of service. So if you're being of service in any kind of way, you're a healer. Those are the people that I help figure out what that looks like for themselves. Healer doesn't have to be like a job or a career or a vocation that you have. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just who you are, right? Mm-hmm. Like having that open heart, that person that loves to maybe help people and be of service. And the thing that I teach people is that that's great, that's beautiful, that's magical and okay. And we have to do it not at the cost of ourselves. We have to learn how to be of service without sacrificing ourselves in the process. And that's really kind of my main bread and butter that I work with other healers.
Yeah, I get that because that was where I have struggled with being an energy healer is that I have a really hard time with boundaries and staying in channel so that I'm not absorbing other people's problems and energies and taking that on because it does. It drains your life force and I don't have time for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's valid. Like so many people struggle with that. And I think maybe this is just something I was born with, or maybe my trauma as a child taught me this, but like I'm a master of boundaries. Like I all the time have students ask me, how do I do this work all day and all the time and I don't get affected by other people's energies? I don't take it home with me because I have strong boundaries. And I know that like as a healer, I'm not just here for everyone else. I'm also Matt and a me, and I'm also here for myself and the life I want to live.
A lot of people struggle with boundaries. How have you mastered them?
For me, it's been about awareness. I've noticed that when I keep my awareness on other people, whether it's clients, friends, family, if I'm constantly thinking about, are they maybe doing the things that I suggested or that we talked about? If I'm in a constant state of worry, are they going to be okay? Are they going to get through this? That keeps me plugged into their energy. And as people who are sensitive to energy, that's going to really affect us a lot. So if I bring my awareness back to me, like, maybe I think about a person for a moment or my thoughts and my awareness is there for a moment because that's normal and realistic. But then I bring it back to myself. I don't allow myself to linger in their energy or in their space for a long period of time because that's what's going to start to drain and deplete me and start to kind of almost like overwhelm me in this heaviness of them.
Do you have people in your life who often feel like maybe you don't care about them because your boundaries are so strong?
I think that there definitely have been people in my life in the past that have felt that way, and they're the ones that aren't in my life anymore. Because at the end of the day, like, if you don't trust that the way that I show you is me caring about you, I'm not going to work hard to try to convince you that I care about you. Because at the end of the day, if you don't trust that, you're filtering that through your own wounds and your pain, and it's not up for me to manage that for you. So I'm not taking that on.
Well, and boundaries really benefit both parties.
Absolutely.
And I think oftentimes someone, when they have a boundary set, that they get all, angry about it. And the truth is, it's really benefiting both parties.
Right. Because, like, my thing is if maybe I've expressed a boundary and that's not okay with you, that's just letting me know we're not in alignment. So we don't need to keep putting energy into each other. And that's okay. That's not a problem. It's not bad. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
I certainly have struggled with boundaries and allowing people to just dump on me, and I've really gotten to a place where it's like, okay, I'll give you a set amount of time. And then after that, if you don't start making changes to better whatever the situation is, then I start detaching from that person. There's one thing about having things that come up in your life, and then there's another with just constant complaining, and that's just kind of your MO in life.
Right. Because that's the thing, like, when we're more sensitive, sometimes we really do have to focus on that self-preservation and just have discernment and be smart about, like, what works for us, who doesn't. And it doesn't have to come from a place of judging or wronging or shaming. It's just we ain't in alignment, and that's okay.
We're not for everybody, and everybody's not for us, right? So we heard this really great saying, like, do you have space to powwow in the bitch tent?
Oh, cute.
Because so often you just go to somebody and it's just bleh, all the shit. And instead, like, asking somebody, do you have a moment to actually hear me go through this?
I always ask the person, do you have space?
Yeah.
I'm never just going to dump.
That's super important. And maybe a takeaway from this for people is to ask. I also think it's important to ask, do you want to know what I'm hearing? Like, unless somebody's coming and paying for your services for you to channel or, to give them suggestions, I think a lot of times people just come right out and say, this is what you should do. And it's like, well, but I didn't ask, So I think there's like this fine line of like, how much should you share?
No, I love that. I mean, because I'm definitely the type of person that if I am going to ask a person, hey, do you have space for me to maybe like talk through something? I rarely ever actually want advice. I usually just want to just be heard, just say what I got to say. And I usually get to that clarity on my own. And if a person starts giving me advice, it usually pisses me off, especially if I've not asked for that. So that's why normally I will, even if a person is coming to me like that, I always ask them, okay, do you want like advice? Do you want me to help you problem solve? Or you just want me to hold space and listen? And I think that all of us, it has nothing to do with being a healer, it just has to do with being a human being, that we need to be considerate of other people in that way and ask before we just immediately start vomiting all the things that we think that they need to hear.
Yeah, I love that. How do you know, or how would one know the difference between wanting advice and wanting just to be heard and someone to hold space for them?
I think that like maybe that's part of the problem is that sometimes we're the ones trying to figure out like what we should be doing for that other person, when really we just need to ask them what it is that they want or what it is that they need.
I think it's important that as the deliverer or the person who needs to vent or process, that they make it clear what their needs are, what they're looking for in that conversation.
Absolutely. I know when I learned how when I'm having conversations with my husband to like start off saying, I want advice or I just want you to hold space, it's gone much more smoothly.
For someone who may not know what human design is, can you just touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, the simplest way I think of it as a map of our consciousness. And so human design is a combination of astrology, the I Ching, the chakra system, the Kabbalah tree of life. It's really kind of all these different systems that have been formed together. So for me, it's my favorite system because I feel like it's so much more comprehensive. But ultimately, it's just a map of our consciousness to help us understand who we've come into this lifetime as so that we can find greater acceptance and permission to allow ourselves to really flow with life as our authentic self.
So I found the human design fascinating myself. It's very complicated, but so is astrology, in my opinion. There's a lot to it. But what could it help somebody determine? Like, could it help you decide what career path may be a good choice for you or partner?
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely can help you kind of get clarity on what your purpose is in this life, maybe help you get clarity on how you're here to navigate life, maybe your personality, even decision making. That's a really big part of human design. There's so many different pieces, even down to what's the best environment type for you. What are the best ways to eat or the best types of food to eat or the best times of day to eat? There are so many detailed things that human design can go into.
One of the greatest things I received from human design is understanding that because I'm a generator and I'm high energy and I'm go, 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 oftentimes I will commit to something when I'm in this great mood and I'm in the flow, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day I'm like, why did I agree to that? I don't want to do it. And so then my energy is going to something that I have no desire to do. Right. And so learning to not make decisions in a heightened state, whether that's really sad or really happy, just to wait a day. Say, I'll think on that for 24.
Right, and that's people with emotional authority, which generators or manifesting generators like myself, we can have emotional authority, which means that we need to take a night or a day or two, sleep on it, and see how we feel. But for instance, if you have sacral authority, you can kind of go off what you know right in the moment. What is that decision? How are you feeling? That's your yes or your no. Go with it. That's the thing that I really like about human design. Instead of it being everyone is the same way, everyone do it the same way, it's like you're uniquely this person, so live life uniquely your way and allow that to be okay.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's skeptical of this kind of spiritual woo-woo psychic life?
You know, for me, it's kind of like maybe two things, and it really just depends on the moment and the person. You know, for some people, I may say, well, if you're up for it and you just want to give it a chance and maybe think of it as an experiment and just see what happens. You don't have to commit to anything or say, I'm taking everything you say as now like the final word of my life. And also, like maybe if I've had that conversation with someone and they keep maybe almost questioning me like they're trying to prove that I'm wrong, sometimes I'll just tell them to fuck off and mind their business.
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm doing and they don't have to like it. They can or they don't have to.
Well, the way I kind of look at it, what's it going to hurt?
Right.
If it makes you live your life to a higher standard, how is that harmful?
Right. And if you're a curious enough person to be open-minded enough, it's really empowering to try different things and see what can help you get wherever it is you're trying to go. But if you want to be super closed-minded, have fun living life in that misery.
Right. And I do believe, and maybe it's this confirmation bias and I'm seeking it out, but I feel like collectively the world is kind of gaining more consciousness. Yeah. People are being drawn to this sort of lifestyle and these modalities, and it's amazing.
You know, I just know that, I mean, in my last like over 20 years in my own healing journey and 15 years in being a healer and helping other people and psychic readings even being like part of what I do, I've just had too many moments with myself and too many other people, too many times over and over and over to doubt it and not believe that it really is a thing.
Well, synchronicity is legit, you know. I mean, there's just so many times that you get the answers that you're just asking earlier in the day, like, just show me what I'm supposed to do. And the next thing you know, there's the solution and answer right in front of your face.
I'm like, why not allow ourselves to just flow with life that way?
Right.
Why do we have to be so rigid?
Yeah.
It's a lot less fun.
A lot of people are seeking spirituality to help relieve suffering. Is there something that you've done that has helped you with that?
You know, I would say for me, like my spiritual journey was the catalyst for my healing. You know, I can remember being like 5 years old, growing up in church, like in the South, and I would just always be thinking about, what's my purpose? What's God? What am I here to do? What happens when I die? And all the stuff I'd be hearing up in the pulpit in church, like never resonated with anything that I felt inside, but I didn't really have the words or the language to describe what I felt inside until I found my spiritual path at, you know, starting at age 15. And then for me, that wasn't just like learning about spiritual things. It was also actively working on healing, identifying, you know, what the traumas were, what were my core wounds, which for me was abandonment. And then like really kind of being on that journey to learn how to heal those things, how to create a stronger relationship with myself, how to come back into more confidence, and even just the recognition that I don't have to suffer forever. Just because I've witnessed so many people in my family and around me suffering literally until they die of it, that doesn't mean that I have to.
And, you know, I was just sitting there yesterday journaling, and it just dawned on me like, man, I really am not struggling. The things that used to like trip me up and that I'd ruminate over, I just don't do anymore. They just don't have that kind of power. And it's all because I found this way of living, and I'm constantly trying to evolve. I'm okay with who I am. I don't need to change. It's this just desire to want to be better, to want to learn more. It's like I'm like a sponge.
That's what I love about spirituality. Like, I believe it really does teach us how to have a stronger relationship with ourselves, whereas religion is always about trying to teach people to have a stronger relationship with God and to kind of forget the self. And then when I look at so many people that live life that way, they're a constant struggle, constant suffering. They are like sometimes the biggest woe is me, like victim consciousness people, which if that's the life you want to live, like that's great. You do whatever you want to do, but that ain't for me.
Yeah, I was put here to enjoy, have pleasure in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I believe having a stronger relationship with ourselves is like how we get to make the things happen that we want to happen in life. And the people that say like we can't have what we want is bullshit.
Amen to that.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming in, sharing all this beautiful insight and wisdom. You are just a dear friend and are going to be such an insight to so many people.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.